everyone, this is Vanessa. I'm a librarian with the Bridgewater Public Library, and this indoor gardening program video is about easy to grow houseplants that are vining plants. So plants that have long trailing vines and do really well in most light conditions. So I'm going to talk about the different types, some of their similarities, and then differences and how you can kind of recognize the different types. So just to get right into it, the first group of plants that I'm going to talk about that are really easy to grow is Pothos. You probably maybe have heard of them. They're pretty popular and common to find. If you want to geek out, the scientific name is Epiprenum aureum, and there's many different varieties. So that group, Epiprenum, that is within the family of plants that are the Araceae family, and there are many different plants within that family. So another common name that Pothos is referred to as is devil's ivy, and that is because it is hard to kill and it spreads, especially when it's growing like outdoors in a tropical climate. So in lots of places it's considered invasive. And they're fun to collect because there are many different varieties. Some of the varieties, I've listed them out. I don't have all of them, but golden pothos, a marble queen pothos, a mandula pothos, an enjoy are just some to name a few. And so you can find them in lots of places, not just garden nurseries. You can find them even, in the plant flower section at your grocery store, or, Home Depot, Lowe's. Pothos are usually pretty easy to find. And I have two varieties here that I want to show you. I'll show the first one is a pearls and jade. And this one, I actually, when I purchased, thought that it was an enjoy variety. And that's kind of a common mistake to make, and I think it actually was even labeled as an enjoy, which a lot of times when you purchase a plant, sometimes you will find that the plant is mislabeled because sometimes the varieties look very similar. So a pearls and jade and an enjoy variety looks very similar. I can kind of explain the difference of how you can tell. So you can see the leaves are this like green, really pretty with cream color. And what determines that it's a pearls and jade is if the leaves have also within that cream and green little speckles of green. If it was just an enjoy, it would be strictly like the white and green color. And it's hard to tell on this little one, but because it's one of my favorites, I have back here a large one that just keeps getting bigger, and I'm going to do a close-up because you can really see the speckles on the leaf. You can see tiny little green speckles on the white. So that is a pearls and jade pothos, and as you can see, they have lots of these long, sturdy, trailing vines. I got this when it was just like maybe 2 inches, and then put it in this bigger pot, and it keeps going. So hopefully one day it'll be just as big as this one back here. The other variety of pothos I have is a neon pothos. This one is like a chartreuse lime color. And I must say, this one is very droopy. This one's not doing so well, so I suspect it might be due to overwatering, and I'm going to try and repot, look what's going on with the roots later. But this is another pothos, and there's many varieties, like I said, but wanted to kind of give you an idea. And let's see. speaking of overwatering, I can kind of get into the care of them. So when you know you need to water them, a sign is when the leaves start wilting a little bit, drooping. This is too droopy. This is, but it would be more of just a slight wilting. You water it about once a week. Sometimes you can push it maybe, 2 weeks, once every 2 weeks. It does like to dry out in between waterings and be in a really well-draining soil mix. So drainage holes are always good. You don't want to overwater them. And another good tip to make sure that the soil doesn't get like compacted is I take a chopstick and every so often, like when the soil, is, too damp or looking maybe a little compacted, I just like poke holes right in the soil just to give little air pockets, just to keep the soil kind of, in good condition, aerated, because these guys do not like to be overwatered. But you get a feel for it depending on how much light you're giving them. You get a feel of how often you need to water them, and even when they slightly droop and you water them, by the next day the leaves pop right back up. And they make indoor plants really great because they can tolerate most light conditions. They prefer bright, indirect, moderate light, but they will also do really good under fluorescent lights, so they make really good plants for offices, and they can even do pretty well in some low light situations, but it is good to make sure that they get some type of light. So let's see, what else can I tell you? Oh yeah, so a great thing about the vining trailing plants is that you can kind of, if you don't like them hanging down and trailing down, you can make them go up. You can get something like this, which is a pole. They have all different kinds. This is a core pole. They have moss poles. You could get a little trellis, and you just would tie it up and have the vines, being trained to go upwards. And I do sometimes hear that can make the leaves get bigger, so that's pretty neat. You could also, like I have just here as an example, some little mini command hooks. You could like put those on, around a door frame or a mirror or something, and put the little vines in the hooks, and it would definitely start trailing wherever you want it to go. So it's definitely a plant that is fun to decorate your space with. So they are toxic to pets and people. So after you handle them and water them, you do probably want to wash your hands just so you don't, maybe accidentally touch your face afterwards, and definitely keep pets and small children away from them. But the good news is they do purify the air, like most plants do, so that's always great. The other neat thing about pothos is that they're very easy to propagate, very easy to take a cutting from. I'll just kind of show a close-up of some of what you'll need to know if you were to try to take a cutting. So you can see these little brown bumps on the vine that I'm pointing to. And these little brown bumps are aerial roots, and they're often kind of near the node. The node is where the leaf meets the stem. That's the leaf node. And where the node is actually where a bunch of like plant hormone lives, and so it's a really good place to cut near there when you're trying to propagate. So kind of a good rule of thumb is to leave about 3 or 4 leaves, and then you would take clean scissors or pruning shears, which you would want to clean with alcohol, rubbing alcohol, so you don't introduce any bacteria to the plant. And you would just take the scissors and cut right after a leaf node, so in between, like right there, You're going to leave about 3 or 4 leaves cut right there. And then probably take off the last leaf and stick that end in either water or soil, and it will, after a few weeks, it'll root. You'll see roots coming up. And that's really great because you could then take that cutting and plant it, have a new plant, or give that plant as a gift to your friends or family. And it also, because these plants can get very big and long, if you feel like your plant's getting too long or you want more of like a compact look up top, it kind of gives them a little trim, which is good for the mother plant. So they're pretty easy to propagate, which is another nice thing. Let's see, what else? Okay, so those are pothos, and they can sometimes get easily confused with philodendrons. And I can kind of explain why that is. It's very common and it's an understandable mistake to make. But when you're in a store and buying a plant, you may want to know the difference between a pothos and a philodendron. And philodendrons, not all types of philodendrons, but there are a few that are also trailing vining plants, and their leaves are very similar in shape. And so that's why they can get confused, sometimes even mislabeled by the people selling the plants. And so I have one here, a philodendron, a heartleaf philodendron. I'll show you here. So you can kind of see that the leaf is heart-shaped, but it's got these little trailing kind of stems, vines as well. So we've got some little trailing stem vines here. And so, there's different varieties of the philodendrons. I also have here, I have a philodendron micans, and so also trailing hanging plant. So, pothos, philodendron. So how can you tell when you're, buying these? There are some differences to spot. So typically pothos have a much stronger stem. Their leaves feel a bit more usually waxier. The other way you can tell is that the leaf shape, yes, while this kind of looks heart-like, similar to the philodendron, there's usually a crease down the line, which makes it a pothos. You can kind of tell that more with this one here. There's usually more of, where's a good example? This one there's more of a crease. It's more narrow in shape, even though, yeah, it's similar to heart, but there's always that crease and more narrow in shape. Another thing about philodendrons is they have, which pothos do not really, is they have a very strong point at the bottom of their leaf. The micans also do too. Very strong. This one's probably a little bit, very strong point at the end. So those are some signs when you're in the store, and I can kind of show you how it can get pretty confusing here, because philodendrons are also in the same family, the Araceae family, but they are a different genus. Philodendron makes it a different plant and different species of that. I have this poster here, which also kind of shows, do a close-up, of the leaves and how they're very similar. This poster says Epiprenum, philodendrons, and syndapsis, which I'll talk a little bit about the syndapsis. There was an artist who made this poster and I thought it was really neat, so I bought it. But you can see like a neon epipremnum, which is this guy here that I talked about, leaf, and then over here is a lemon and lime philodendron leaf. And so if you're at a store, you might be like, okay, well, which one's the philodendron, which one's the pothos? So similar color, this like chartreuse color, but this one's definitely more heart-shaped. This one's more narrow with that crease. So it's very easy to get them mixed up, and it may not matter too much, but it is nice to know. The reason it might not matter too much is because the care is similar. It's pretty much the same. You want good, well-draining soil. You know, philodendrons like to be kept moist, but they don't like to be overwatered. They do well in just moderate light, and they're usually easy to grow plants and easy for beginners. So let's see, what else can I tell you a little bit about? I do want to mention that, back to this poster that says the Scindapsus pictus, which I don't own one of those, but the reason why that's also confusing, I'll show you the leaf of that one. Has a nice illustration here. This leaf, the Scindapsus pictus, is often called a satin pothos, but it is not a pothos. That's its common name, but the Scindapsus pictus is actually its own. Scindapsus is its own genus, the species Pictus, and then it has different varieties and cultivars. And the Scindapsus pictus, is also in the same family as the pothos and the philodendrons, the Araceae family. And so even though it's called a pothos, it's technically not. But again, similar care. If you were to pick up a Scindapsus pictus, it's trailing and does pretty well in, you know, moderate light. So, you know, they're all great plants. Another last one I want to talk about and show you is Monstera adansonii. And this one I do have on a vine. On a pole. Here you are. So you can see I've tied it up. I'm hoping that it will start to make it grow a little bit better and the leaves a little bit bigger. And even though it's got vines that are similar to a pothos, this is a different plant. It is in the genus Monstera, so totally different plant, but similar. It likes to be kept moist and you know, likes to kind of be trained to go up to get better leaves. So I hope that you've learned a little bit in this video about trailing vining plants and some of the differences, and whichever you choose to buy or to try and take care of. They're all really great, easy to grow plants for beginners. So whatever you choose, a pothos or philodendron or Scindapsus or Monstera adansonii, I think that you will enjoy them and the look of them. And yeah, that's it. Have a good day, everyone. Bye-bye.